Hi, welcome to my first actual real webisode. My name is David Dixon, and this is the economy of power. I decided to do my first webisode on this in this branch of my webisodes. You may have seen my intro video, which explains I'm kind of doing 3 different series that are kind of interrelated, but not. They're all about society. They're all about us as people. They're all about studying human behavior, human logic, society. Anyways, but this one's about political. This one's about political issues, and I'm very conservative. You'll notice my views are very pointed and very conservative. And if you're not, I suggest you still watch me. Not because you'll agree with me. You'll probably want to throw fruit at the screen, but it'll give you a different point of view. And you know what? Please post on my YouTube, post on my Facebook. Tell me you hate me. Tell me you think my ideas are stupid. Make sure to watch my other stuff too, because it's not all about this either. Especially the philosophy stuff. Really, anyone can get into that. But without further ado, the debt crisis. It's the big issue. It's the big button issue. And I don't think I'm going to be able to finish everything I want to talk about in 15 minutes. But I'm going to try. I am really not that interested in the ideas of what the actual bills are, what these things are, what they're trying to vote in, what they're trying to do this or that, as in what's the actual technical stuff of the bills. Because I've listened to a lot of what it is, and honestly, that's, if you want to hear that, listen to talk radio, watch some Fox News, watch some CNN if you're a liberal. Go have fun with that. Go watch the news if you want that. I'm getting to a different issue. And the issue is the political power play. You see, the reason why we can't come to an agreement, why the House and the Senate and the President can't come to an agreement on a reasonable solution to our debt crisis, which seems like it's a real crisis from what everyone's been saying. We may really default on our loans. And I don't know, that might not be the worst thing that could happen to this country, and I'm going to explain as I go along on that. It's because no one wants to catch the blame. You see, this thing came to a head under the Democrats' watch. And whether you are, whatever side of the fence on you're going to argue, well, it was really this person or really that person, whatever. Okay, everyone wants to play the blame game. No one wants to actually take the blame. No one wants to catch the hot potato. And that's the problem. That's the reason why nothing's even done. That's the reason why people aren't holding to their guns. You see, the Tea Party in 2010, I think it was the Tea Party that had a big push to elect fiscally conservative Republicans who all promised they wouldn't raise taxes, who promised they would cut the deficit, who promised that they would hold the Democrats and stop this socialist regime from steamrolling the Constitution and steamrolling the American people and, frankly, the working, tax-paying part of the American people. And so they all basically told the Tea Party this is what we're going to do, and that's why they got elected. And it looked like they were doing what they were going to do. They were holding their guns. Cut, cap, and balance seemed like a really good idea. It seemed like here's a reasonable, common-sense solution to a real problem. Here you go. And, of course, the Senate's going to kick it right back in their face, and President Obama's never going to sign off on something like this. He's asking for tax hikes, and they're trying to cut his spending. Two polarly opposite ideas, obviously. So, obviously they're not going to sign on to it. So instead of sticking to their guns and saying, well, here's the ball in your court, why don't you come up with a plan that's going to work and see if we might think it's reasonable and okay. Instead of doing that, Boehner, who, if you don't know, is the leader of the House of Representatives, he basically said, well, okay, let's try to get the best we can get, the best deal we can get, because he doesn't want, and the Republicans in general, the vanguard of the Republican Party is like, well, we don't want to get blamed for not being able to play ball with the Democrats and watching our loans default. Okay, but you've already offered a reasonable plan that the American people obviously voted for, because they voted for fiscally conservative Republicans. They voted for the extreme conservative because that's what they wanted. And to now offer a plan that's what they wanted and then now go and backslide and make backdoor deals because they're voting on the Boehner plan, right? And last I heard on the radio, and this was a couple hours ago, was that they are postponing the vote in the House on the Boehner plan. But at the same time, Boehner's apparently making a backdoor deal with Obama, Reid, and McConnell, Senator McConnell, on the real plan that's really going to pass through Senate, because now he's like, well, we have to come up with a plan that's actually going to pass through Senate, because the new Boehner plan, after cap cut and balance, they've done like 3 that are like somewhat similar to that, whatever. After that, obviously wasn't going to work. That was just basically a ploy. Here, Tea Party, we're doing what you wanted. No, you're not. You knew it wasn't going to pass. You're just trying to throw us a bone, right? And I'm say us, even though I haven't really done much for the Tea Party in a while, just because of school and work and such. I'm still very much in favor of what they're doing, and I want to get back involved one of these days soon. I guess maybe this video and videos like this are a way for me to do that in my own way. But so they threw him a bone, and then when the bone, of course, didn't get caught by Senate, they just said, well, we're going to make up the best thing we can. And so he's backdooring all of his voters by cutting a sweetheart deal to Obama. Apparently this deal gives Obama, and this is just one of the statistics I know is true, $2.5 trillion in deficit spending. And it's going to cut spending by $900 billion over 10 years. Now, if I'm doing my math correctly, that means that Obama still gets $1.6 trillion of deficit spending, which they're making a committee of 6 Republicans and 6 Democrats to figure out a solution to cut $1.6 trillion later down the road, of which tax hikes aren't out of the question, because that committee is going to decide what they want to do, and they're going to be moderates. Okay, so you signed and said, well, I'm not going to raise taxes, but I'll set up this committee through legislation that might raise taxes, because I don't have any control over them. So I'm just going to pass the blame, because they're either going to have to raise taxes, or we're going to come to another debt crisis, and we're going to default on our loans then, or we're going to have to actually cut spending and do what we need to do. But we're not going to cut spending because the Democrats won't let you. So instead of saying, well, if you're not going to let me cut spending, then I'm not going to let you have more debt, and say, we're going to stonewall you. We're going to, just go at it and let the roof cave in. Because if the roof doesn't cave in now, it's going to cave in later. If it doesn't cave in later, the only way it's going to survive is by raising taxes. And that is what the Democrats want. You see, they want to play on the Republicans' fear of looking bad to the public to raise taxes and to further the debt ceiling, because they know, further the amount of debt we're getting into, because they know that the Republicans are so afraid of looking bad in the eyes of the public. And I know there are some Republicans out there. Rand Paul is one of them. A lot of the other Republicans who got elected in the spree in 2010 are holding to their guns and aren't going along with the Boehner plan. And there's a reason why, because they're not going to sell out. And I applaud them for not selling out. But a majority of Republicans are selling out. Instead of realizing that the American people, especially the Tea Party, they're smart people. They're smart enough to say, okay, well, you gave the Democrats a logical plan, a reasonable, common sense plan that we wanted, and they didn't pass it. Okay, when we default on our loans, it's not your fault. It's the Democrat Senate and the Democrat President, Obama, who has refused to pass a reasonable plan. But instead of leaving common sense to the common sense voters who voted them in to implement common sense and to stop this regime from trampling over the Constitution, they got scared. The majority of them, especially Boehner. And they're going to compromise and allow this regime to save face, because the Democrats were going to fall on their own proverbial political sword if a deal wasn't made. That's why they're running around like chickens with their head cut off right now. Not because they're afraid of the debt crisis actually falling in on their heads. They're afraid of the political backlash from the debt ceiling falling in on their heads. And they realize that the American people were smart enough to vote these fiscally conservatives in to gridlock them. That's what you're supposed to do. You got elected to gridlock them until 2012, when you can get more Republican senators in, and we can get a Republican president in the White House to actually turn this country back around. You were supposed to gridlock them until 2010. No one expected you to actually pass things through because we only control one part of the legislative government, and we don't control the executive branch. So no one expected you to actually pass things through. They expect you to gridlock this steamrolling of the Constitution. But you see, the Democrats, they want to continue this entitlement. And they realize that if they can get the Republicans to play ball, that not only will they get their way and continue to create more and more entitlements, the real conservatives will turn on the moderate conservatives, and you'll have a split in the Republican Party again. And guess what? That's what Obama needs to win the election. The Democrats aren't dummies. They're getting the Republicans to play ball and play right into their hands. And why do I think that they want more entitlements? Let's put it this way. There is a rising entitlement class, and I say entitlement class because it's not the lower class. There's plenty of lower class people, low class people who are working, paying their bills, doing their thing. They're just, they don't have high-paying jobs. They're trying their hardest. They're working as hard as everyone else. But there's an entitlement class who's not working, who is too lazy or refuses to work, who doesn't have the skills, whatever, and they're just leeching off everyone else's taxes. But guess what? They still get to vote. So what happens when you continually create more entitlements and more people dependent on you? You keep getting voted into office. So it's all about politics. It's all about power, and that's why I'm calling this the economy of power. It's all about power. These people want to remain in power. They're not dumb capitalists. They're not dumb economists. They're smart Marxists, and they're smart elitists. They're smart socialists. They want to create an engine to continue to vote themselves into power. And as they continue to be voted into power, they create more entitlements, which create more voters for them, because you don't bite the hand that feeds you. The more baby birds they keep feeding, the more those baby birds keep pampering their hands and keep voting for them. That's what's happening to this country. And the hardworking middle class is soon going to turn into the hardworking lower class, because they're going to get beat around. And you know what? Obama says we're not taxing the middle class. Well, when you tax the people they work for, $250,000. That's not a lot of money for a middle management business owner. For a middle-sized business, even a small business, it's not a lot of money. And they get taxed. They don't want to hire more people. They don't want to expand their business. They don't want to raise their wages. They don't want to do anything that's going to help the economy, which means that inflation is going to go up. People are going to get taxed more because the GDP is not going to rise, which means we're not going to bring in more revenue to pay for all your entitlements. And the cycle will continue until the middle class slowly becomes the lower class, enslaved to the entitlement class, who's probably getting more money off of the taxes they're paying in. The new lower class, which was the middle class, is paying in than the people actually working to cover these people's bills. This can only end in a few different ways. We are at a precipice here. If the Republicans do not hold their guns, if the Republicans in the House do not hold to what they know they should be doing, either this thing is going to fall on our heads in a couple months or a couple of years. You ever play that game Jenga? You keep putting the blocks on. Eventually, you can only stack the tower so high before the blocks on the bottom can't hold it anymore. There we go. Blocks on the bottom can't hold it anymore. So it's either going to fall on our heads and it's going to be a lot worse later. That's number one. Number two, they have to raise taxes, which is going to enslave the middle class. It's going to enslave people who frequent the Tea Party, or worse, even. More extreme even than Tea Party. Tea Party is reasonable. You haven't seen the real crazies. In which case, those people are eventually going to get sick and tired, and they're going to uprise. And you know what? Those people are the people whose sons and daughters serve in the military. Those are the people who have guns. Those are the people who really are able to uprise. So it's either going to fall on our head much more deadlier, much worse. We're either going to have to raise taxes, and then we're going to probably see a bloody mess, civil war, or worse. Do your job, Congress. Stall them until 2012 so we can get a real solution. My name is David Dixon. This is the economy of power. Thank you.